peoples of the worldwide federated internets. What is good? What do you think about your parents? And what should you think about your parents? Let's get into that. So, I was thinking about something. I was talking to my uncle, my father's brother. My father passed away last year. And having that conversation with my uncle made me think about something. What do you think about your parents? What should you think about your parents? I don't think this is something that most people think about. Not even Bible-believing Christians think about this sometimes. You know how I know that? Because I didn't for the longest time. And I'm thankful to God that I got the opportunity to get to know my father a little better before he passed away. But I'll get into that a little bit more. But you know how I like to start. I like to start it all with a Bible verse. So in the book of Exodus, chapter 20, this is where the commandments were given for those who know the Bible, the 10 commandments. And in verse 12, we have a commandment concerning parents. And the Bible says, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Now, if you look at the book of Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 2, the Bible says, honor thy father and thy mother. Now notice this statement, which is the first commandment with promise. Now clearly in verse 12, the whole idea about the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee in this context doesn't apply to us. But the rest of that verse in its context absolutely does apply. The Bible says, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. I believe there is longevity in life in honoring your parents. I believe that does still apply. In Ephesians 6:2, it says, honor thy father and thy mother, which is the first commandment with promise. And I believe that's the reason why that's mentioned, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with thee and that thou mayest live long on the earth. Verse 3. What's your relationship like with your parents? I know it can't always be good. I understand that. Some of us have parents like me. My father wasn't around. I saw my father maybe a total of 5 or 6 times in my life. Some years ago, I think I was 31. Now, I should have known this early on because I know this verse. I've read this verse many times. I've read all of these verses many times. I called my father one night. I'll never forget. I got his number from my aunt. And I said, Dad, you know what? I don't know what you were going through when I was young. I don't know why you weren't around. I don't know what you were doing, and I don't know what you were going through. I know a lot of times these situations are a lot more complicated than we know as children, but I want you to know that I forgive you for not being around. It's water under the bridge. It's all good. And me and my father actually, over the next 10, I think it was like the next 10 years, we would talk. I had an overseas job, so whenever I travel overseas, he'd call me. There was a time difference, so when I knew it was the right time, I'd call him back. He used to leave me a message. We'd have conversations. He kept telling me I needed to go on a cruise, which I haven't been on to this day, and I'm going to go on one just in honor of him. I'm going to do it. I always said I would never go on a cruise, but when all this Rona apocalypse lights up and cruises start up again, I'm going to go on one just in honor of my father. But I realized something that I didn't pay attention to early on. Not forgiving my father actually put undue stress and burden on me emotionally. And there was a lot of things, a lot of problems I had that were directly related to me not forgiving him. Now, I'm not saying that if you have a parent that wasn't around, that wasn't doing a job they were supposed to do, or even a parent that's abusive, I'm not saying that you hold them up on a pedestal like the sun rises and sets based upon what they say. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we need to have for those of us who believe the Bible, even for non-Bible believers, this will help you too, because I'm telling you, this helped me. But as a believer, we need to take a biblical approach to how we handle things in life. Yeah, I would love to hold a grudge. I'm just going to keep it real with you. Sometimes you just want to hold a grudge because you feel like it's punishing that person, but really and truly is only punishing you. So anyway, getting back to my father, me and him built a relationship. We started talking. We had some good conversations. And I am so thankful to God that I got to do that, because in some ways, I won't say it provided closure. I know that's a term that people always use. I didn't necessarily need closure. I just needed to understand, until I realized the only thing I need to understand is whatever he had going on, he had going on. I forgive him and we can move on from there. That commandment didn't say, honor thy father and thy mother if thy father and thy mother is perfect. That commandment didn't say, honor thy father and thy mother if you like and appreciate everything that thy father and thy mother has done. It's not what it says. And a lot of times we insert things into Bible verses that's not there. For instance, forgiveness. A lot of times we'll go over the verses that deal with forgiveness, and we will add our own things to these verses. Here's how we'll do it. Well, yeah, I was going to forgive him, but he did a lot and he continues to do X, Y, and Z, and he still hasn't paid me my money back, and he still hasn't apologized for what he did. Look, man, this commandment is not predicated upon what kind of person your parents are. The Bible says, honor thy father and thy mother, that it may be well with thee, and that thou mayest live long on the earth. The longevity of your life is definitely going to be predicated upon what you do with this. But what we have nowadays is we have people walking around with all kind of emotional and mental baggage from their youth. And a lot of it is because, one, they can't put what happened in the past behind them. It doesn't matter what kind of person your father or your mother is. Let's say your father or your mother is a junkie, a drug addict, or an alcoholic. Am I saying you make excuses for that? No. Am I saying that you turn a blind eye to that? No. But how about you go to your father? How about you go to your mother? How can I help you? Make an effort to try to help them get clean. Maybe your father or your mother wasn't around. You have something against that. You harbor some ill intention toward them because of that. Chop it up with them. Maybe the situation wasn't as simple as you thought it was. That's not to make excuse for them not being around, but maybe if you talk to them, you'll understand, all right, this is not to make an excuse, but this actually makes sense. I can understand why you made the decision you made. Because see, it's easy to stand on top of the hill and cover a person with dirt. But see, when you're at the bottom of that hill, when you're at the bottom of that ditch and the dirt is getting thrown on you, you have a whole different perspective. But I say all this, getting back to my point, there's a lot of people that don't realize how much they're missing out on life because of not honoring their father and their mother. Look, when I forgave my dad and me and him started building a relationship and talking, I didn't realize how much me harboring these feelings toward him affected my life until I forgave him and we built that relationship. Harboring that in my heart for that many years, I want to say I was either 30 or 31 when me and my pop started talking. Harboring that in my heart for years made it very hard to forgive people. Very hard. And there's a lot that I missed out on. Look, you can hold this animosity in your heart forever. You can be mad forever. It's not going to affect the other person. Half the times they don't even know you're still that mad. When I was able to do this, when I was able to talk to him, when I was able to forgive him, when I was able to understand a little bit of his side, what was going on. You don't have to justify what a person is doing, but have some sympathy. Talk to him. See what was going on. See what was happening in life. I'm telling you, it was like a burden lifted off my shoulders. I don't remember the last conversation exactly verbatim that me and my father had, but one thing I do know, every time me and him talked, before we got off the phone, it was always, all right, love you, Pops, love you, son. So if there's nothing else, I know that was one of the last things I shared with him, was the fact that I loved him. My love for him wasn't predicated on whether he was a great father, whether he was around, whether he was there or not. My love for him was predicated upon what the Bible says. The Bible says to love thy neighbor as thyself. Not only was he my neighbor, he was my father. And in loving him and in understanding his situation, I honored my father. See, this is not about your parents being perfect. And this is not about you making excuses for whatever shortcomings they have. This is simply about applying a Bible truth so that you can be in a right standing with God and so that this can help you out. Now, for the people who are non-believers, this will help you too. Whether you're a believer or not, harboring hatred, ill will, and feelings like that in your heart is never helpful. It's never helpful. It's never helpful at all, and it will get you nowhere. This is something we all need. We all need to honor our father and our mother. See, the reason that most people have a problem with authority is because they never submitted to their first earthly authority, father and mother. See, my father wasn't perfect, but this was a institution or what have you that God set up. Right? So just because he wasn't perfect didn't mean I get to skip out on Exodus chapter 20 verse 12 and Ephesians chapter 6 verse 2. I don't get to skip out on that just because he wasn't perfect. The verse still applies. I'm telling you, these things will help you out if you listen. Stay frosty, people.